They thought disaster victims would be too vulnerable to notice. They thought people's kindness was their weakness. But what they didn't know was that I was watching. Every fake donation, every suspicious account, every misleading social media post, I tracked it all. And by the time I was done, their entire charity scam collapsed, and the real victims finally got the help they deserved. I never imagined I'd find myself in the middle of something like this. My name is Layla Rahimi, and I'm an investigative journalist and web security consultant based in Los Angeles. Most of my days are spent chasing white-collar scams, corporate fraud, and cybercrime stories. But this was different. This was personal. It all started after a catastrophic hurricane devastated the Gulf Coast. The news was filled with harrowing stories. Homes swept away, families displaced, lives shattered. Social media feeds exploded with people donating to help. And, unfortunately, scammers were already there, waiting to exploit the chaos. I first noticed the scam when my colleague, Sofia Ramirez, shared a link on Facebook. It was a donation page supposedly raising money for hurricane victims. Professional-looking graphics, photos of children, heartfelt testimonials, even a small verified charity badge, everything screamed legitimacy. Something didn't sit right with me. I clicked through and immediately saw subtle inconsistencies. The URL was strange, slightly off from any legitimate charity. The domain had been registered just weeks ago, long after the hurricane. Payment processor details pointed to a personal Gmail account, not a 501c3 organization. Red flags were flashing everywhere. I opened a new browser tab and started digging. Reverse image searches revealed that the photos of children were lifted from stock images and unrelated social media accounts. The testimonials were copied from another charity website word for word. It was infuriating. People were donating their hard-earned money, thinking they were helping families in desperate need, and instead, it was going straight into the pockets of fraudsters. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding. Part of me thought, maybe I should just report it to Facebook and move on. But another part, the part that had spent years exposing corporate and cyber scams, knew better. I had the skills to track this operation, expose it, and protect future victims. And that's when I made the decision. I wasn't just going to watch these scammers steal from innocent people. I was going to turn their own scheme against them. By the end of the day, I had begun planning a decoy donation system, a small, traceable flow of funds designed to lure the scammers, record their activity, and reveal their network. This was going to be more than an exposé. It was going to be a sting that no one would forget. After spotting the red flags, I knew I couldn't jump in blindly. This wasn't a simple news story. I was dealing with active fraudsters who had already stolen from unsuspecting donors. One wrong move, and not only would they vanish, but I could also risk my own finances or personal safety. I started by gathering all the publicly available information on the page: domain registration details, payment processor info, any social media accounts linked to the fundraising. Everything pointed to a single operator, or possibly a small network, running a highly organized post-disaster scam ring. Their strategy was predictable: exploit people's kindness immediately after a tragedy, appear legitimate, and disappear before anyone could question them. Before taking any action, I reached out to the real charity they were impersonating, a well-known nonprofit helping hurricane victims. I explained the situation, shared screenshots of the fake page, and asked if they were aware of it. They weren't. "We had no idea anyone was impersonating us," said the representative. "Thank you for bringing this to our attention." That confirmed what I suspected. This was purely malicious, preying on people's generosity. I promised the charity I would coordinate with them as the investigation unfolded. I knew the only way to catch the scammers was to interact with their system in a controlled, traceable way. I set up a decoy donation page with a small but functional payment gateway, tracking on IP addresses, devices, and geolocations, a method to capture every confirmation and response the scammers sent. I also prepared dummy accounts for potential donors, each funded with a few dollars. These were enough to appear genuine but fully traceable. Every time a donation was made, the system would log who accepted it, what bank or card was used, and any follow-up communication. I realized I wasn't just collecting money. I was creating a digital breadcrumb trail that could eventually lead to the scammers' identities and their financial network. I didn't plan to do this alone. I contacted a trusted journalist from a major LA news outlet, someone experienced in investigative reporting on cybercrime. Together, we outlined a strategy: document every interaction, keep the public safe by warning potential donors without tipping off the scammers, coordinate with the real charity, and, if necessary, law enforcement. I also set up a small internal network with friends and colleagues who could act as dummy donors to test the decoy page. Every interaction had a purpose: gather evidence, lure the scammers, and prepare for a full expose. Once the decoy page was live, I made it appear legitimate and urgent. Social media ads mimicked real disaster relief campaigns. Testimonials were written to appear heartfelt but fictional. Small, verified badges made the page look credible. Every detail was designed to draw the scammers' attention and trigger their automated monitoring system. I needed them to think they were dealing with a real operation so that they would reveal their next steps. By the end of the first week, the decoy page was active, donations were being received, and the scammers were starting to take the bait. Every interaction now had the potential to expose the full network behind this operation. By the start of the second week, the decoy donation page was fully operational. I had a small team of trusted colleagues acting as donors, each making tiny contributions to make the page appear legitimate. Every donation was a calculated move, designed to lure the scammers into thinking they had found a rich source of funds. I remember sitting at my desk in Los Angeles, laptop open, coffee growing cold as I monitored the real-time data. Each incoming donation triggered alerts I had set up. IP address tracking, showing where the fraudsters were operating from. Device type monitoring, revealing if they were using mobile devices, desktops, or VPNs. Transaction logging, the flow of funds down to the last cent. It was meticulous work, and every detail counted. The first real sign of life from the scammers came late on a Friday evening. A donation accepted notification popped up, and within minutes, the scammers sent a follow-up email. "Thank you for your generous contribution. Please confirm your card details to process the donation fully." I smirked. They had taken the bait. I replied carefully, pretending to be a generous donor, confused about the donation process. "Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure it went through. Do I need to send anything else?" Their response was immediate and revealing. They gave instructions on transferring the funds to a secondary account and even hinted at how they laundered small donations to avoid detection. I noticed patterns. Multiple donors were sending money within minutes of each other, and the scammers treated each as an individual transaction. That meant I could map the entire network of receiving accounts in real time. Using my tracking system, I created a visual map. Main account, where donations initially appeared. Secondary laundering accounts, IP addresses linked to each account. Every small donation we funneled through the system now painted a bigger picture of the operation. I could see which accounts were active, how quickly they were moved, and which devices were used to manage them. The breakthrough came when one of the decoy donations triggered a response from an unexpected source: a secondary email linked to the primary account. "We see you've donated multiple times. If you continue, your info will be flagged. Please stop." That was perfect. Not only had they reacted, but their defensive language gave us insight into their fear points, which we could use to manipulate further interactions. I immediately shared the data with the journalist I had partnered with. Together, we noted multiple fake donation pages were tied to the same IP range. Several devices had logged in from the same location within hours of each other. The laundering pattern suggested a professional scam network, not just a single individual. By the end of the week, we had everything we needed to pinpoint the key accounts and trace the flow of stolen donations. But the scammers still had no idea we were watching. With this evidence, I knew we could escalate. The goal wasn't just to expose them, it was to collapse their scam and reroute donations to the real charity. The next step would be the bait they couldn't resist: slightly larger, traceable donations, multiple dummy donors acting urgently, and carefully crafted emails designed to make them reveal even more about their laundering methods. Every small reveal, every tiny donation, was building toward the big payoff. The scammers believed they were in full control, counting money from compassionate donors. But by the next leg, they would unknowingly walk into a trap that would dismantle their entire operation. By the start of the third week, it was time to turn all our evidence into action. The decoy donation page had already proven its worth. Scammers were interacting, revealing account details, and even showing signs of nervousness. But I needed them to dig themselves deeper into the trap. I began crafting the next phase of the sting: a full-scale bait operation. This wasn't just sending in a few tiny donations. This was about creating the illusion of a booming charity they couldn't resist. The decoy page got a full makeover to look hyper-legitimate. Professional graphics and videos showing families affected by the hurricane. Testimonials that sounded authentic but were completely fictional. Fake badges like verified charity partner to boost credibility. Social media posts and ads targeting donors in high-income areas. Every detail was meticulously designed to mimic real disaster fundraising campaigns. I even included small urgent pop-ups like "Immediate help needed. Every second counts." These tiny psychological nudges worked. Within hours, traffic increased, and the scammers noticed activity they could easily monitor from their accounts. I enlisted a handful of colleagues and friends to act as dummy donors, each contributing small amounts through the page. But these donations were more than just bait. They were traceable signals. Each donor used a slightly different IP location. Each donation was linked to a unique card and account. Some requested official receipts to trigger automated responses from the scammers. Every transaction gave me a clearer map of how they were laundering the money, including secondary accounts I hadn't discovered yet. As dummy donations piled up, the scammers became more active and less careful. Late one night, I received an automated email from them. "We noticed unusual activity. Please confirm all recent donations immediately to avoid account flagging." This was perfect. They were panicking, and I could now manipulate their fear to expose more of the network. I carefully replied as one of the dummy donors. "Oh no, I only meant to donate $5. Do I need to send anything else to help the families?" Their response was instantaneous. "Yes, please transfer the funds to account X immediately, and we will verify your contribution." Over the next 48 hours, the scammers were frantically monitoring the decoy donations. They logged in multiple times, changing devices and IPs, trying to confirm each dummy donation. Every movement they made was captured, timestamped, and mapped. I realized we had them exactly where we wanted. They believed they were in control, but every action now strengthened our evidence. At the same time, I coordinated with the journalist and the real charity. We prepped a public warning for potential donors. We prepared to release evidence showing the fake charity operation, and we documented every step for law enforcement. What the scammers didn't know was that each small donation from our decoy system was not just a single transaction. It was a data point in a larger map. Multiple dummy donors acting simultaneously, small traceable funds showing money flow, interaction logs exposing devices, IPs, and automated systems. By the end of this week, I had a complete network map of their operations, all without tipping them off. The scammers believed they were profiting from generosity. But by what I was about to do next, Every small misstep they made would contribute to their complete unraveling, and the evidence we collected would be ready to hand to authorities for maximum impact. By now, it was clear the scammers weren't going to stop. Every decoy donation, every dummy account interaction, and every urgent post we created had drawn them in deeper. They believed the fake charity page was legitimate, and that confidence made them sloppy. And that was exactly what we needed. I reached a critical point where the decoy system alone wasn't enough. I needed official power behind the investigation. I contacted the FBI Cybercrime Unit, explaining the situation and presenting all the evidence. IP addresses linked to suspicious accounts, device logs and timestamps of interactions, full tracking of dummy donations and the scammers' responses. They immediately recognized the gravity of the case. Charity scams exploiting disaster victims are a high priority, and the evidence we had collected was solid enough to freeze accounts and identify key players. The agents asked for everything in meticulous detail. I handed over logs, screenshots, and transaction trails. They promised to keep the operation confidential until they could act. Crucial, because if the scammers suspected they were being tracked, they would disappear instantly. Parallel to law enforcement, I coordinated with the journalist I had partnered with. Together, we crafted a carefully worded warning for the public. Fake charity pages are exploiting hurricane victims. Do not donate until verified. If you have any suspicious links, report them immediately. We didn't reveal all our methods yet. The goal was public safety without tipping off the scammers, while also creating external pressure that would make their next moves frantic and error-prone. Within hours, the warning spread on social media, going viral among local networks, neighborhood groups, and community forums. People began reporting suspicious links they had clicked or shared, which we immediately fed back into our decoy system, further strengthening the evidence. With authorities and media coverage in place, it was time to make the bait irresistible. I instructed my team to create larger, traceable donations from multiple dummy accounts, include urgent messages to mimic high demand and encourage quick action from the scammers, vary IP addresses, devices, and donation amounts to force the scammers to act across multiple accounts simultaneously. Every step was deliberate. Each interaction revealed more about their internal process, how they moved funds, which accounts were hot, and how quickly they reacted to perceived threats. The first sign of real panic came mid-week. Scammers began sending confusing, contradictory instructions. Do not send more than $10 per donor. Verify each one with the main account. Confirm the passwords. It was a goldmine. Their desperation exposed their structure. They were juggling multiple fake accounts, trying to avoid detection, and revealing every detail of the network we needed for law enforcement. At this point, even a single slip could allow authorities to freeze the main accounts. I carefully documented everything, double-checking every log, every transaction, every timestamp. By the end of the week, we had a complete map of their accounts, IPs, and devices, logs showing how funds were being funneled and laundered, emails and instructions revealing how the scammers coordinated. The stage was set. With law enforcement ready to act, media coverage in place, and a fully documented evidence trail, the scammers were about to walk straight into a trap they didn't even know existed. Every small donation, every fake testimonial, every minor interaction had led to this moment. Soon, the scammers' operation would begin to collapse in real time, and the funds would finally be rerouted to the real charity. By the start of the fourth week, it was clear the scammers were trapped in their own web. Every traceable donation, every dummy account, and every IP log had painted a detailed picture of their operation. What they didn't know was that authorities were watching in real time, and the media coverage was amplifying public scrutiny. The first indication of the scammers' desperation came late one night. I received multiple alerts. Multiple logins from different devices in the same IP range within minutes of each other. Emails sent in haste, contradicting previous instructions, attempts to withdraw or transfer funds immediately. One particularly revealing email read, "All donations flagged. Accounts may be frozen. Move funds immediately to backup accounts in Nevada and Texas." This was the moment we had been waiting for. Their panic was proof of both guilt and vulnerability, and it also provided new leads for the FBI. Within hours, the FBI froze the primary accounts linked to the scam, preventing any further withdrawals. They also traced the secondary and tertiary accounts, thanks to the logs we had provided. I watched in disbelief as the scam network started to unravel. Emails bounced back. Withdrawal attempts failed. Several accounts were locked permanently. Every small move they had made to cover their tracks only strengthened the evidence against them. While the authorities took action, I worked with the journalist to prepare a full public exposé. We published step-by-step evidence of how the fake charity operated, screenshots of scam emails, payment logs, and IP addresses without revealing donor identities, warnings to the public to avoid similar scams. The article went viral within hours. Social media feeds exploded with comments. "Thank you, I almost donated to that page. This is terrifying. Good thing someone caught them." The scammers were now not only facing law enforcement, but also public scrutiny, which would make it impossible for them to continue the scam elsewhere. The most satisfying part came when the frozen funds were rerouted to the real charity helping hurricane victims. Families who had been waiting for aid finally received the money they needed. Donations that would have gone straight into scammers' pockets were now being used for food, shelter, and medical care. The charity publicly thanked the team for exposing the scam and recovering the funds. I received countless messages from donors, victims, and volunteers, expressing gratitude for stopping the fraud. Watching the scammers' network collapse in real time was both thrilling and emotionally fulfilling. Every email, every panic response, every failed withdrawal was a reminder that we had succeeded. Victims were safe, money was restored, the scammers were exposed and powerless. For the first time in weeks, I could lean back and breathe. The satisfaction wasn't just professional, it was personal. These scammers had tried to take advantage of human kindness, and we had turned their greed into their downfall. The scammers had no idea the full scope of the sting until the authorities revealed the evidence. We made sure that their operation would be completely dismantled, and the story of justice and recovery would go public for the world to see. By the 5th week, everything was falling into place. The decoy donations, meticulous tracking, and coordination with authorities had completely unraveled the scam. What had once been a sophisticated operation exploiting disaster victims was now in pieces, visible for the world to see. The FBI acted decisively. Over the course of several days, primary accounts were permanently frozen. Secondary laundering accounts were identified, blocked, and tied to multiple fraudulent pages. Emails, IPs, and transaction logs provided undeniable proof of the network's activities. By the time the first arrests were made, the scammers were completely exposed, and their ability to operate had been eradicated. News outlets covered the story extensively. Los Angeles cybersecurity expert and journalist helps bring down a nationwide charity scam exploiting hurricane victims. The scammers' names, faces, and operations were broadcasted, leaving them publicly shamed and powerless. One of the most rewarding parts was seeing the recovered funds reach the real charity. Families affected by the hurricane, who had waited for support, finally received aid. Food, shelter, and medical supplies were delivered to those who needed them most. Community organizations praised the operation, highlighting it as a model for protecting donors. Donors who almost fell victim felt relieved and inspired by the vigilance of the team. The story went viral. On social media, "She took down the fake charity and saved our donations. This is the reason we need investigative journalists." People shared their near-miss experiences with similar scams, creating a ripple effect of awareness. The video clips, news interviews, and social media posts featuring my involvement reached hundreds of thousands of viewers. The media highlighted my work, not just as journalistic success, but as a blueprint for cybercrime prevention. Authorities credited the coordinated effort between investigative journalism, tech expertise, and law enforcement as a rare, highly effective operation. I remember sitting at my desk one evening, reflecting on the past 5 weeks. Every late night, every tiny donation, every IP trace, it had all led to this moment. The scammers were no longer a threat. Victims were protected, and the recovered funds were helping real families. There was a deep sense of satisfaction that went beyond professional accomplishment, knowing that the greed and manipulation of these criminals had been stopped. Realizing that careful planning and ethical hacking could protect innocent people. Seeing the public learn and become more vigilant against similar scams. Though the scammers were exposed, their story served as a warning to others. Charity scams never truly disappear. But vigilance and action can make a difference. The operation taught me that preparation and patience are key. Each small action contributed to the ultimate collapse. Coordination multiplies impact. Working with authorities, media, and the real charity amplified the sting. Public awareness is a weapon. Once people see the scam, they become part of the defense. By the end, the fake charity was nothing more than a cautionary tale, while the real charity continued its work uninterrupted. And I, Layla Rahimi, had not only uncovered a massive scam, but had restored justice, funds, and faith in human kindness. Weeks had passed since the collapse of the fake charity scam, but the emotional weight of the operation stayed with me. I remember sitting at my desk in Los Angeles, staring at the final logs, screenshots, and transaction maps. It was over. The scammers were arrested and exposed. The stolen donations were redirected to the real charity, and disaster victims finally received the help they desperately needed. But more than the evidence or the arrests, it was the human impact that made the entire operation feel meaningful. I visited the real charity office to witness the recovered funds in action. Volunteers were organizing emergency supplies, packing food boxes, and distributing aid to families affected by the hurricane. One woman, a single mother named Carmen, approached me holding a small bundle of supplies. "I heard about what you did. My kids will finally have food this week. Thank you." I felt a lump in my throat. The months of painstaking work, creating decoy donations, tracking IPs, coordinating with law enforcement, had led to this moment. Real families, real relief, real justice. It was a reminder that every late night, every careful log, every risk I had taken was worth it. Beyond the immediate fallout for the scammers, the story became a teaching moment for the wider public. News interviews, social media posts, and the viral article I collaborated on reached thousands of viewers. Donors learned how to verify legitimate charities. Online communities became more vigilant about sharing links. Authorities praised the campaign as a blueprint for preventing future scams. The scammers' public exposure wasn't just punishment, it was education. Every person who learned from this case became less vulnerable to future schemes. Finally, there was closure. The scammers would face legal consequences. Victims got their aid, and the broader community had learned to be vigilant. Personally, I felt a deep sense of accomplishment. The words I had spoken at the very beginning of this journey came full circle. They thought they could steal from the kind-hearted, but they underestimated the people watching and the ones willing to fight back. For me, the victory wasn't just in catching the criminals. It was in restoring faith, protecting generosity, and making sure that justice wasn't just served, it was seen by the world. I continued my work as an investigative journalist, but this operation stayed with me. I used it as a case study in workshops, conferences, and social media posts, teaching people how to spot scams, protect themselves, and fight back. Layla Rahimi, Iranian-American journalist and cyber sleuth, had turned a high-stakes disaster scam into a story of justice, vigilance, and human resilience. And in the end, the scammers learned the hardest lesson of all, that greed and deceit, when exposed, crumble under patience, skill, and determination. Kindness should never be a weakness, and I made sure that in this case, it wasn't.
Thank you for being here. If you enjoyed this, go watch the one of the left and don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel for more tales of triumph over injustice and a saga of ultimate revenge.